Hello, and welcome again to today's video. Before starting, I'll add a disclaimer that it explicitly mentions today's video is only for educational purposes. Nothing more nor nothing less. Having that checked, we now may start. Leatherface, for sure a known character by it for games like Dead by Daylight, or by the movie itself, a scary monster, crazy and with a violent instinct to murder. Moreover, there is more to it than this fictional character. Ed Gein, or better known as the Leatherface, was the real man behind that monster with cruel and sadistic intentions. What you sure don't know is what he did. Being born on 28th of August, Ed was a guy like any other. Growing up, he and his brother Gein had a very strict family, adding up the fact his dad was emotionally detached, and her mother a very religious lady, making her hate men and think of women themselves as the core sinner too. George had issues finding a job, and Augustina was displeased by that, making her decide to go to Plainfield with her family of four, for a better life, and landing on what seems a huge unkempt farm. Went to school, but to his surprise, he wouldn't get along with the others. He had some differences. He didn't match his energy with anyone, starting from his weird habit of laughing out loud after every nonsense, to the sole fact that her mom would put a stop to the seeming friendship. Augusta hated men, so far that she'd recite biblical verses and explain to the Gein brothers how most of the men will burn in hell, starting from their alcoholic dad to the many who do wrong. She believed women themselves were lost too, and that they'll get to see the devil someday. But of course, she claimed that she is not one of them, because she was dedicated to fulfilling her religious belief. His alcoholic dad died by the age of 66, leaving alone the Gein brothers in their 30s. They both started working on the farm, taking care of the animals, farming, or just keeping it tidy. But one thing Ed loved to do was babysitting. He loved kids. Augusta, his mom, suffered a cardiac attack in 1944 which led her to be in bed for the following 12 months. Until she finally passed out in 1945, leaving Edward totally on his own, because his older brother Henry died in a fire. On May 16, 1944, a brush fire burned close to the farm, and the Gein brothers went out to extinguish it. Reportedly, the brothers were separated, and as night fell, Ed Gein lost sight of his brother. When the fire was extinguished, he reported to the police that his brother was missing. When a search party was organized, Gein led them directly to his missing brother, who lay dead on the ground. The police had concerns about the circumstances under which the body was discovered. The ground on which Henry Gein lay was untouched by the fire, and he had bruises on his head. Despite this, the police dismissed the possibility of foul play, and the county coroner listed asphyxiation as the cause of death. Although some investigators suspected that Ed Gein killed his brother, no charges were filed against him. Now, why or how he had the need to make human-inspired furniture? Maybe his complicated childhood played a part. How did it start? With who and how did it end? Mary Hogan, 54, tavern owner, and Bernice C. Worden, 58, hardware store owner, where the first one was killed without having any suspects, but the second is when they got their hands on Gein. On November 16, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Worden disappeared, and police had reason to suspect Gein. Worden's son had told investigators that Gein had been in the store the evening before the disappearance, saying he would return the following morning for a gallon of antifreeze. The sales slip for a gallon of antifreeze was the last receipt written by Worden. On the morning she disappeared. Upon searching Gein's property, investigators discovered Worden's decapitated body in a shed, hung upside down by ropes at her wrists, with a crossbar at her ankles. The torso was dressed out like that of a deer. She had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, and the mutilations performed after death. When questioned, Gein told investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he made as many as 40 nocturnal visits to 3 local graveyards to exhume recently buried bodies while he was in a daze-like state. On about 30 of those visits, he said he had come out of the daze while in the cemetery, left the grave in good order, and returned home empty-handed. On the other occasions, he dug up the graves of recently buried middle-aged women he thought resembled his mother and took the bodies home, where he tanned their skins to make his paraphernalia. Gian admitted robbing 9 graves, leading investigators to their locations. Because authorities were uncertain as to whether the slight Gian was capable of single-handedly digging up a grave in a single evening, they exhumed 2 of the graves and found them empty, thus corroborating Gian's confession. On the court Washara, a county sheriff, Archley allegedly physically assaulted Gian during questioning by banging Gian's head and face into a brick wall, causing Gian's initial confession to be ruled inadmissible. Schley died of a heart attack in December 1968, at age 43, only a month after testifying at Gian's trial. Many who knew him said he was traumatized by the horror of Gian's crime, and that this, along with the fear of having to testify, especially about assaulting Gian, led to his early death. One of his friends said, he was a victim of Ed Gian as surely as if he had butchered him. On November 21, 1957, Gian was arraigned on 1 count of first-degree murder in Washara County Court, where he entered a plea of not guilty, because of insanity. Found mentally incompetent and thus unfit to stand trial, Gian was sent to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, now the Dodge Correctional Institution, a maximum security facility in Waupun, Wisconsin, and later transferred to the Mendota State Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. In 1968, Gian's doctors determined he was sane enough to stand trial. The trial began on November 14, 1968, lasting 1 week. He was found guilty of first-degree murder by Judge Robert H. Gulmer, but because he was found to be legally insane, he spent the rest of his life in a mental hospital. On July 26, 1984, Gian died of respiratory and heart failure due to cancer in Goodland Hall at the Mendota Mental Health Institute. His grave site in the Plainfield Cemetery was frequently vandalized over the years. Souvenir seekers chipped off pieces of his gravestone before the bulk of it was stolen in 2000. The gravestone was recovered in June 2001, near Seattle, and is now in a museum in Washara County. For sure, the story of Ed Gian has had a lasting impact on popular culture, as evidenced by its numerous appearances in movies, music, and literature. Gian's story was adapted into a number of movies, including Deranged, 1974, and The Light of the Moon, 2000, later retitled Ed Gian for the U.S. market, and Ed Gian, the Butcher of Plainfield, 2007. Gian influenced the nature of book and film characters, most notably such fictional serial killers as Norman Bates, Psycho, Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill, The Silence of the Lambs. The news reports of Gian's crime spawned a subgenre of black humor. Since the 1950s, Gian has frequently been exploited in transgressive art or shock rock, often with no connection to his life or crimes beyond the shock value of his name.